Awesome. All right. Welcome, everyone. Paige Alcoholic. And yes, we're going to be diving in page 128, bottom paragraph. And just to talk about where we're picking up in the book. We're in the chapter, The Family Afterward, which is describing some of the difficulties and the challenges that a family will experience after the alcoholic has had a spiritual awakening. After the alcoholic has recovered as the result of the 12 steps. And it tells us that there's likely two directions the alcoholic will go after they've recovered. The first direction, and that's what we're speaking about for the last few weeks, was focusing on work, diving in, a little bit of casual workaholism, work, business. We can tell I'm a real fancy adult person, but that's that one direction, and it was really warning against that. Because even for an alcoholic who has recovered, that can be dangerous. And of course, it speaks about the difficulties a family will experience, a family feeling neglected and because they are being neglected, and then how to overcome that. Now, the second direction, and that's where we're at today, is after the spiritual awakening, a stirring spiritual experience. The alcoholic often will dive headlong into spiritual matters, headlong into spirituality. And the book is not so subtle that this is a better choice. Option A, option B, let's do this. Like, this is the way to go. But there are some problems that can and will arise when we're diving headlong into spirituality in the family dynamics. And so the idea is that the family sees the recovered alcoholic, and welcome those that just joined us. We're on page 128, bottom paragraph. And so the family sees this and they're like, man, they've lost their minds. Like, what are they on about? And so where we're picking up, bottom of page 128, he is not so unbalanced as they might think. So this they're out of their mind. It's like, hold on. They're not as unbalanced as it might seem. And it says, many of us have experienced dad's elation. And again, I want to emphasize, as we talk about the word experienced, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are experiential. They're not based on what I think or what I feel or what I believe or my opinions. They are based on the experiences that I have as the result of the actions of the 12 steps. And when it talks about that spiritual, or when it talks about that elation, to be elated is like it's like being lifted up and like full of joy and enthusiasm. And that's what we're talking about. We've experienced it. It's not an idea or an opinion. It is an experience. And it says we have indulged in spiritual intoxication. And I'll let you know, there's not a spiritual hangover after that one. Like, if there's something for me to indulge in, it's that. I don't even got to worry about my Amazon receipts or whatever. That's the way to go. Lean into the spiritual intoxication. And this is one of my, I just love this metaphor. And I'm going to spend spoilers, going to spend a whole lot of time on this metaphor. I apologize profusely. All right. So it says, like a gaunt prospector, belt drawn in over the last ounce of food, our pick struck gold. And it's one of those things that, what is a gaunt prospector? Well, in the 1800s, there was a number of gold rushes that happened in the world. So in California, it was in 1849, there was the California Gold Rush. That's why the San Francisco 49ers are called the 49ers, sprinkling in some sports. We also had a gold rush up in the Yukon, in the northern part of Canada. And so imagine what it would be like to be a prospector. A prospector is somebody who would travel to some of these remote places in search of gold. And I can hold my experience up to that light. Was I not looking for something before I took that first drink? Was I not looking for some sort of relief or some sort of release or some sort of way to not feel the way that I was feeling? Now, your experience might not be mine. But I was not a happy camper before I took a drink of alcohol. I was restless, irritable, discontent in vitro. Like that's who I was. Now, that does not make me an alcoholic, but again, that's what I was trying to treat with alcohol. And that's what I will treat with the 12 steps to produce a spiritual awakening. So that's what's important. So I was looking around for something. And imagine I wander into the wilderness that is alcoholism to try to find that gold, to try to strike it rich, so that, which in my case would be to not feel the way that I was feeling. I find this alcohol, I find the solution, and I'm trying to find that gold. But you see, what happens is, imagine I'm like prospecting, and so to prospect there's different ways to do it. One of the ways is to pan for gold in the riverbeds, because the rivers will like take the sediment deposits and pass them downstream. And so a lot of gold miners will go and try to pan gold in the river. Now imagine, I traveled up to the Yukon Territory. It is cold. Listen, in the summer you got mosquitoes, in the winter you have cold, and that's it. Beautiful landscapes and all of that, but imagine November in the Yukon, trying to pan for gold in that river, trying to find some little nugget of an answer. And for me, that's a little like trying to have control over that physical allergy. So that physical allergy is that thing that happens that once I take a drink, I can't stop. I take that first drink and it demands a second. Second insists on 4. Fourth will not relent until I've had 8. Eighth drink screaming at me until I've had 16. And see, I don't know about you, but I was in that river in the cold Yukon wilderness, and I was trying to find an answer. And my fingers are going numb and my feet are freezing, and I can't find a way to control and enjoy my drinking. And you see, I don't know about you, but I started to have some consequences that were piling up and piling up and piling up. I was doing things I didn't want to do. I was hurting people in ways I didn't want to hurt people. I was crossing lines in the sand I said I would never cross. And I realized that there was no gold for me in that river. I got to go find somewhere else. And so imagine I go to the side of a mountain and I start picking for gold. And you see, what I realize is I can't take that first drink. So I'm looking for some answers. I'm looking for some way to stay sober, because I see that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I cannot take that first drink. I know that I can't drink. I know I have to stay sober. I know I need to stay sober. I know I want to stay sober. And I got my pickaxe in hand and I am digging in this mountain. And I actually, this is years ago. I never really talk about this because it's not that important. But I used to work in irrigation, which, if you're wondering what that is, it's digging holes for a living. Oh, page number 128, bottom paragraph. We've not gone far. You've not missed much in terms of pages covered. Oh, and I'm on a tangent, but I did forewarn that we were going on this tangent and we'd be a while. And I'm on a tangent on my tangent. I used to work irrigation. And where I live, we're in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Man, it is hard digging. There's a lot of times I literally would use a pickaxe and I'd be getting nowhere. I at the time, 120 pounds, and I'd jump on the shovel and go bonk and fall over. I wasn't doing it, but I gave it a good go. But imagine, and then with that, digging with that futility, I'm not finding anything. And that is me trying to exert some power over. Yeah, that's Eileen's right. That's a little page lore drop. Every once in a while I'll drop those. But people in AA get the lore drops. When I do it with non-alcoholic people, and I'll be like, yeah, I used to live under a bridge. They'd be like, the what? They don't appreciate the lore drops the way you guys do. But imagine that's me trying to exhibit and exert some power and control over the obsession of the mind. So I'm digging, I'm shoveling, I'm moving. It feels like I'm moving mountains, trying to find an answer for me to stay sober, and I can't find a solution. And here's the thing. I described what it was like when I was trying to dig and shovel. And welcome, Ben. Glad you're here. We're at the bottom of 128. We're talking about the Gaunt Prospector. And I was trying to do it. And that's the thing, is I was trying to stay sober. I was working. There were things that I was doing to try to put between me and that first drink. But none of it worked. And when we talk about the prospector being gaunt, to be gaunt is to be emaciated. So I'm not finding any answers. I'm not finding any solutions. I'm starving. And I am dying of exposure in the wilderness that is alcoholism. And I'm going to throw me back in the metaphorical Yukon territory of my alcoholism. During the summer, I got the mosquitoes that are eating me alive and the sun that is barreling down. And let's be honest, with this complexion, I'm not doing well in direct sunlight. And then the long winters full of ice and snow and unbearable cold, and I'm dying and I'm starving and I can't find an answer. It goes on to say, like a gaunt prospector, our belt drawn in over the last ounce of food, our pick struck gold. So how did I go from the futility of digging and trying to dredge the riverbed and trying to find an answer to finding gold? Well, I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and let me be real, I have tried to dig in futility in Alcoholics Anonymous. But it wasn't until somebody directed where I dug, directed where my effort went. And it was the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as outlined in the book that we are studying today, the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And then I began to exert my energy and my effort after that spiritual awakening through the 12 steps as outlined in this book. Something happened. And I struck gold. Gold. It was everything that I was looking for my entire life. I struck gold. I found an answer. And I don't just mean sobriety. Sobriety. Because I couldn't stay sober off sobriety. Because every time I drank, I was sober. I needed something different. I needed that spiritual awakening. I didn't know that's what I needed. I didn't even want it. But it's the result of taking actions I didn't want to take. Actions that I didn't think would help. Actions that felt futile based on all of my other experience. I found gold. And it says our pig struck gold. Joy at our release from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. I found an answer, a real answer, something that works. That's that joy that we're talking about. That isn't just I'll pull out my Eeyore. I'm sober just for today. I've lost the drink. No, but there is joy because there is a real answer that we have found. And it goes on to say, Father feels he has struck something, and I want to emphasize this, better than gold. And that's part of the warning of over-concentration on financial success, because what we can find here is better than gold. That's what's available. And I would encourage, spend time with people who have found that. Spend time, not just to get from them, but the people that are excited about this thing. Those are the ones that are doing this thing. And it's if you're really doing it, it's hard not to get excited by it. Because what we've experienced has been absolutely transformational. And the people that are doing it, and I'm more likely to do it if I see the light and the glow and the joy of the people who are doing it. That gold, and I have a feeling that gold shines through the light in their eyes. That's what that light is. It's that gold, And it says, for a time he may try to hug the new treasure to himself. So I want to keep it to myself. I want to hold on to it because it feels so elusive. He may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load. And I talk about this quite a bit. I talk about how there's no glass ceiling in Alcoholics Anonymous. There is no I'm done. I talk about I am recovered, but I'm not. I get to continue to grow and seek and deepen the spiritual awakenings that I have. I get to have new experiences. There's not a limit to what we get to experience here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't have to settle. And so what we have here is a limitless load. And that's also a message of hope, because if we've maybe done a set of steps or we've been around AA, and the message that we're seeing here, bottom 128, top of 129, it's like, what do you mean? I'm just sober and every day's still a struggle. Every day's still a fight. It is the hope that more is possible. And just so you know, it is human to get off the beam. It is human to become complacent. It is human to fall into a bit of like, man, I'm not as excited about this. That's human. But what it's saying is we get to pick these tools back up, these 12 steps back up, and keep digging. And the more that we dig, the more that there is. Like, that's what we get to experience. It's powerful. So he may not see at once that he's barely scratched a limitless load, which will pay dividends. Now, some of you are aware that I'm not so great at financial literacy, budgeting based on vibes, which is not how you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to budget with like numbers or something, I guess, whatever. Weird, judgy, but a dividend. So a dividend is like, imagine if you were to buy stocks in a company. Welcome, we're on page 129, very top of the page there. Let's say we were to buy stocks in a company. So I make an initial investment, and the dividends are what I get paid in return for that initial investment. So it's not just I get rewards because I'm continuing to grow and to seek and to develop a spiritual awakening, but those spiritual awakenings, they pay dividends. It's not even a one-for-one return on investment. I don't know what a good return on investment is. Vibes, but it's a good one. Somebody's going to be like, listen, Paige, we have to have a talk about how you do finances. Maybe an accountant. I don't know. But that idea. And so I get to, and that's what I mean when I talk about how Alcoholics Anonymous is not a set it and forget it program. I am never truly done the steps. And I'm never going to go criticize somebody that said, oh yeah, I did the steps. I'm not going to judge that because I get what they're saying, but I am never truly done the steps. These 12 steps are my way of life, how I live my life. And I seem to still be living. So I got more work to do and more growing. But then the more I grow, the more I experience. And please know, I do know what it is like when we're having those days where it's tough and we're hurting. Welcome, page 129, at the very top of the page. When it's tough and we're hurting and we're in pain. And we don't know, like, yeah, it's like, why do I always have to keep working on myself? And I want you to know it feels like that in my experience. Why do I always have to keep working on myself? Why do I always have to keep growing? And to be fair, I'm not working on myself. I'm taking a course of action to let God work on me. That's what I'm doing. But it feels like I'm working on myself. Usually when I'm not, I'll be honest with you. It's usually when I'm complacent that I'm like, why do I always have to do it? I'm always doing it. It's usually when I'm not doing it. But it's not I have to, it's I get to. Again, the more that I do, the more I experience. The more that I do and experience, the more I have to help others. The more that I awaken, the more that I experience the infinite power that is the universe. Yeah, I don't have to set this thing and forget this thing. I don't have to be like, well, I'm sober today, and if you want what I have, no, I get to be free. And I have moments where I'm not free. So don't think I'm perfect. I have to continue to grow. And some of you are like, we can tell you need this thing. And we can tell you need to do this thing we can get your sense of urgency, girl. You are unwell. I know. So I got to go after this thing. So it'll pay dividends only if he minds it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product. I give away everything that I find. Now, when I was new or relatively new to Alcoholics Anonymous, I would hear people say, you got to give it away to keep it. And I kind of knew what they meant. Like, yeah, you got to help other people or whatever. But I didn't really get it. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm like, okay, if you're going to use this, give it away to keep it, I'm thinking about you can't have your cake and eat it too, girl. And I would like some cake. You know what I mean? Like, I can't have the cake and eat the cake, you know? So what do you mean if I give it, like, it just, like, I kind of got what they were angling at, but I didn't have the courage to be like, what do you actually mean? And the reason is because I didn't have it. I'm putting it in quotes. You've got to give it away to keep it. I didn't really have it. And what is the it? The it in my experience is the spiritual awakening that happens as the result of the 12 steps. And it is ineffable. Forgive me for the use of my antiquated terminology. Some of you guys know I love the word ineffable. Ineffable means to be experienced, to be understood. And I need to experience that freedom, that lifted up, that, elation, that experience of that transformation from the inside out. I need that experience to see, oh, I've got to give this to other people. I've got to share this with other people. They need this thing. And the more that I give it, the more that I receive in return. Welcome. We're at the very top of page 129. Glad you're here. So I've got to give away the entire product. And yes, like I said, it did not make sense until I experienced it. And I talk about that, one, because that was my experience, but also many of us, me, but like I'm probably not the only one, came and I thought I had to figure it out intellectually before I took the actions of the steps. And that's not the order. If this whole thing is ineffable, which is to say to be experienced, to be understood, then I've got to go and experience it. 129, very top of the page. We got you. Now we're going to be popping into the second full paragraph, but that's where we're at. We got you. And so that's what we're talking about. So if I'm here and I'm like, no, I just got to figure it out. And I know that might feel a little intellectually frustrating. But what I want you to know is it is something that I have to do to learn, do to experience. This whole thing is about action to bring about that spiritual awakening. Yes, what has happened? Yes, there's a lot of waving. Is that about me? What has happened?
Well, the sound went out.
Oh.
I saw you. The video was good, but the sound
The sound's out. Is it still out?
Nope, good now.
Okay, because I was not muted, so I don't know why the sound went out. And it stayed unmuted the whole time. Is that...
just a sentence or two, but you're good.
Cool. I'm sure they weren't important. And actually, it's a good time for me to, I caught the waving. Please know I'm watching. I'm paying attention. I'm like, what happened? What's going on? I don't think I did anything especially egregious. Whatever I was talking about, I don't know what important it was. But essentially it was that idea. I've got to do it to experience it. I can't figure it out and wait to have that experience. I've got to take the course of action and then I have the experience. So that was kind of the thrust of whatever tangent I was on. So let's dive into the next paragraph and I'll keep looking for waves if it cuts out. Oh, no, I don't think it was you because I'm host, Vivian's co-host. I don't think I can be muted and I don't think she muted me because I don't believe I had muted. So maybe it's my Wi-Fi, maybe it's the pewter, which is the technical term for the computer which I'm using. But if it happens again, you just wave and I'll repeat. And also know that I am recording on a separate device, so anything you miss, it's in the recording. Shout out for the recording. See what I did? I just made it. No, I don't know. Anyway, all right, 129. It goes on to say, if the family cooperates. So again, the alcoholic is going headlong into spirituality because how could you not? It's like we found an answer. We've found a solution to everything that I thought was wrong with me, everything that I thought was missing. It says, if family cooperates, Dad will soon see that he is suffering from a distortion of values. So what it's saying is like, hey, for the family members who are reading this, just hang in there. Just let them go a little headlong into spirituality. It will sort itself out. That's what it's saying. It says he will perceive that his spiritual growth is lopsided. We will figure it out. It might take us a bit, but we will get there. And it says, lopsided, that for an average man like himself, A spiritual life which does not include his family obligations may not be so perfect after all. Most of us are not locked away in a monastery, convent, sort of a hermitage, and living in spiritual lives there. No, we have loved ones, families, jobs, careers even, we have lives. So what it's saying is, if I have a family, I do have to give them time and love and attention and seek to be of service to them. And so that's important. But I also want to point out the context, because a lot of times and people I've worked with, we want to avoid the hard work of the 12 steps. I'm just going to be of service to my family. I've got to spend time with my family. I'm not saying don't do that, but I want to emphasize, if I am not at step 12, living 10, 11, and 12 on a daily basis, I don't have a defense against the first drink. And if I have no defense, it is not a matter of if I drink again, but when I drink again. So it tells me, like, I've got to focus on getting to that spiritual awakening quickly and thoroughly. That's what my effort has to be on. And then I'm going to be able to show up as the best version of myself to my family. I've made amends to my family, and I'm demonstrating that change. So I just want to contextualize that, because it can be easy to like cherry pick and take things out of the book and be like, no, I don't need to do a fifth step. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna make macaroons with mom, but macaroons couldn't keep me sober. I'm not making macaroons. Clearly, I'm not career oriented. I'm not super domestic oriented. I don't got a lot going on. Not doing it. And welcome. We're on page 129. We haven't made it far. So a spiritual life which does not include his family obligations may not be so perfect after all. So I need to show up to my family in that spirit of love and service, bringing the 12 steps to my family, not as in like, hey, Ma, you got to do a fourth step, but that demonstration of the 12 steps. So it says, if the family will appreciate that Dad's current behavior is but a phase of his development, it's just a phase, Mom. You don't understand, or it's not a phase, Mom. Like whether it was the goth or the emo or the punk, it's a phase. Us going a little hard at it. It's a phase. It'll sort itself out. And it says, if the family will appreciate that Dad's current behavior is but a phase of his development, all will be well. So we're going to say, hey, this is just a part of the process. Going to go a little headlong into spirituality, just understanding the bigger picture. It's all going to be okay. And it says, in the midst of an understanding and sympathetic family. So it's saying, show up with understanding, show up with sympathy. Don't try to discourage this. So in the midst of an understanding and sympathetic family, these vagaries of Dad's spiritual infancy. No worries. You have a wonderful night. Thank you so much. And if you want us to keep in contact with you, pop your number. You can send it to me privately if you'd like. We're just so glad you're here. In the midst of an understanding and sympathetic family, these vagaries of Dad's spiritual infancy will disappear. The vagaries, that word in my 1930s dictionary refers to like a wild or freak or like whim. So these wild, impulsive, like kind of, a little weird sort of description. It says, will quickly disappear. And I love that it talks about spiritual infancy. Perfect. Thank you so much. Spiritual infancy. You see, the spiritual awakening is not the finish line. You see, I thought step 2 was the finish line. I thought the belief that there could be a power that is greater than me, that was the finish line. No. The finish line isn't even the spiritual awakening. The spiritual awakening is like being reborn, and now we're, newborns. We're in infancy, and so we grow from there. How often do we refer to Alcoholics Anonymous as spiritual kindergarten? I can grow out of kindergarten. And some of us, we struggle with sharing and taking turns and using nice words. So, I'm saying there's times maybe I need a refresher on the kindergarten, or I'm a little overstimulated. I'm like, let me just play with blocks for a bit. But we're meant to grow out of infancy, grow out of kindergarten. We're meant to grow and seek. So these are the early days. So again, that spiritual awakening is not the end. It is a new beginning. It goes on to say the opposite may happen should the family condemn and criticize. So if the family's like, that's weird, you should give us more attention. By the way, it's understandable. We're going to talk about this a lot. The family wanting attention. Because for years in our drinking, we did not give them attention. They are being reasonable in asking for it. So it says, the opposite may happen should the family condemn and criticize. Dad may feel that for years, his drinking has placed him on the wrong side of every argument. But now, he has become a superior person with God on his side. And if you're wondering what that is ego. That's what that is. I am superior now that I've got God. No, God, that's not how that goes. Absolutely not. So it says, if the family persists in criticism, this fallacy, now fallacy is something that is untrue. So we have the spiritual awakening as the result of the steps. That doesn't make me better than anyone else. But yeah, obviously, but like sometimes it's like, but I'm so spiritual. And then the family's like, you're not that spiritual and tone it down. And then it's like that allows that to grab a larger foothold. So, and it says, instead of treating the family as he should. So we should be giving our family care and love and attention and affection and respect and consideration. That is how we ought to show up to our family. So instead of doing that, we retreat further into himself and feel his spiritual justification for so doing. So just withdrawing and retreating, and you don't get me, I'm different, right? So that's it's saying like, hey, for the family, let them go. Let them go hard. They'll get it out of their system, just like they got the, overlining the mascara and eyeliner back in the day. They'll work through it. It'll sort itself out. And it says, though the family does not fully agree with Dad's spiritual activities. So they don't need to agree. I don't need to get them to agree. They don't need to like what I'm doing in the sense of, oh, you're doing a lot of AA, or I wish you wouldn't go to so many meetings. Like, I don't need to convince them, especially with arguments or my words, my actions and behaviors. That's what will convince them. But it says they should let him have his head. Now, if you imagine riding a horse, to ride a horse, they'll wear a bridle and then they'll have reins. The bridle goes around the horse's head and the reins are used to direct the horse's head, which is to direct the direction the horse will go. To let the horse have its head is kind of to let the horse decide which direction it's going to go. So let them go, like just, and when you pull back on the reins, it slows the horse down. So to let them have their head, it's like, go where you're going, go as hard as you want to go. It'll sort itself out. And it says, even if he displays a certain amount of neglect and irresponsibility towards the family. And I know that's a big ask because it's not like neglect and irresponsibility is new behaviors from some of us. That is how we have been showing up for years. And so it's like, oh, thank you. We've traded one neglect and irresponsibility for another. But again, it will find the equilibrium. It says, it is well to let him go as far as he likes in helping other alcoholics. So again, that emphasis that working with others, carrying this message to other alcoholics is of vital importance. and just go. Let them sponsor as many people as they want to sponsor in those early days. Yes. And it says during those first days, and again, I use the word days, the book uses the word days, as in it doesn't take long to get well. We're talking about sobriety in a matter of days. Like, we can get well, we can go and write inventory, make our amends, and like quickly get this thing moving and be of service to others. And it says during those first days of convalescence, this will do more to ensure his sobriety than anything else. Convalescence is recovering from illness. So in those first few days of recovery, going and helping others, carrying this message, 12-step work, that will work more than anything else. 12-step work. Again, it's a callback to what we see when we kicked off the chapter working with others. If I want permanent sobriety, I have got to sponsor others. The word sponsor not found in the first 164 pages, but again, the job description is all over it. So, working with others, that's going to help more than anything else. And it says, though some of his manifestations are alarming and disagreeable, we think Dad will be on a firmer foundation than the man who is placing business or professional success ahead of spiritual development. And I want to mention the foundation. The foundation for my life has to be all 12 steps. All 12 steps. If I don't have all 12 steps rocking and rolling, I don't have a foundation. So there's a sense of urgency to get there. And I also want to point out when it talks about ahead of spiritual development, one of the few hills that I die on, listen, I got some hills. I don't got too many of them. One is that you can recover. Yes, you can recover. That's one of my hills. One of the other hills is that idea that it is not progress, not perfection. It's not that. It is spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. And I am adamant about that because material progress could not keep me sober. And I'm sure no one else here relates to this, maybe, but of progressing materially, getting the relationship, the car, the bank account, the career, the this, the that, and dying on the inside. I can progress physically and regress spiritually. So the name of the game in Alcoholics Anonymous is, how am I progressing spiritually? The irony is, the more I progress spiritually, the more I'm able to show up in all areas of my life the person I truly wanted to be, and I'm a better, whatever the role is. So what I've got to do is I've got to put spiritual growth first. It's saying like, hey, if I want a firm foundation, that's what I should be doing, focusing on spiritual growth. And keep in mind, it's not saying don't go to work. If you got to work. If you got, if you got kids, take care of them, do that. Absolutely do that. But what it's saying is, if I focus on spiritual growth, everything else will fall into place. And it says he will be less likely to drink again, and anything is preferable to that. And you see, material success could not keep me sober. Cannot keep an alcoholic sober. I need to grow spiritually. So it goes on to say, those of us who have spent much time in the world of spiritual make-believe have eventually seen the childishness of it. This dream world has been replaced by a great sense of purpose, accompanied by a growing consciousness of the power of God in our lives. And right there is a sneaky description of a spiritual awakening. A growing consciousness of the power of God with that great sense of purpose. So it's not a dream world. It's not fanciful. And I'll tell you just my experience. You can often tell the spiritual awakening because the person seems more grounded. Not like, do we need to call somebody? Is there medication that you're supposed to be taking that you're not taking? It's not like that. But it's like they seem more grounded. There's a calm and a presence and grounded, but a lightness at the same time. So I can hold my experience up to that light. Is that how I'm experiencing. And again, if the answer is like, no, that's not my experience, it's not shame, feel bad, you're bad, wrong, boo. No, there's no limit to this thing. Let's change the orientation through which we are digging with that pickaxe so that we can continue on that unlimited vein of gold that never runs dry. So it says, we have come to believe he would like us to keep our heads in the clouds with him, but our feet ought to be firmly planted on the earth. That is where our fellow travelers are and where our work must be done. So we have that conscious contact, that connection with God, and that service to others. And that's really that's what this thing is about, that spiritual awakening, that powerful connection with a God, a spirit of the universe, the creator, whatever, and yet a desire to go show up and be of service. Those two things are important, and those two things are promised. And I'll point something out. I don't see when it's talking about that, like, you can't keep your, I sometimes hear people in certain meetings where not everyone's really active in the steps, and maybe coming to this part of the book, and there's usually somebody that's a little grumpy, who's like, no, you're not supposed to have your head in the clouds. I mean, feet on the earth, and you get so woo-woo with the spirituality, and like just a grumpy grumperson. Listen, I've been there. There's not an ounce of judgment. But I actually don't see that too often, where people are too far in terms of the spirituality of the 12 steps and the seeking that happens through the 12 steps. I don't see it. I see a lot of times people take their time with the steps and take a long time to get that experience. And so I'm saying that just because I've seen this line used as a reason to poo-poo people who are seeking and growing and experiencing. And again, that's what it's telling me I am called to do. Absolutely. And it says, these are realities for us. And this is important. We have found nothing incompatible between a powerful spiritual experience and a life of sane and happy usefulness. So what does that spiritual experience look like? It's bringing about this life of sane and happy usefulness. And those two things live together. And again, this is how we know this whole deal is experiential, not intellectual. Because if you hear about a spiritual experience, you're going to be like, that sounds like somebody's lost their mind. And if I describe the fourth dimension, you're like, okay, the fourth dimension, have you been taking drugs from somebody in a van and you're really excited about the carpet? Like, what are you on about, Paige, right? It's like, it sounds absolutely wild. And it sounds like I don't want that. That's weird. And we kind of think about like that person in our life that's a little bit out there and a little bit like, yikes, I don't want to have a too intense one-on-one conversation with them. Like I don't want to be like that. But this is how we know this is experiential and not intellectual. Because that's the fear I have. That's the understanding that I have. But when I have the experience, it's like, oh, again, grounded, rooted, like actively able to be of love and service to the people in our lives, to show up in a way I didn't think possible, to experience joy and peace and freedom, to see the presence of God. And I don't mean in a weird way, but in a way where it's like that power and that connectedness that drives us deeper into understanding and seeking and compassion, like that. And I think we've all experienced people who've been like that. And it's like that person where it's like, you see it and it's like, man, I want that. They got something that I don't have. I want that. So it goes on to say, these are realities for us. We have found nothing incompatible between a powerful spiritual experience and a life of sane and happy usefulness. And before I get onto that next paragraph, I also want to say, my life was not sane or happy or useful before. So, like that, if I want to get stuck in my sort of like, it's almost a pseudo-intellectualism, because it's not an intellectualism, because an intellectualism is willing to seek, to explore, to try, to investigate, to have an experience with. It's a pseudo-intellectualism where I think I'm just I'm too smart to have to do that. And it's like, I'm smarter than you and I'm suicidal. And I'm talking about like how I would show up. Like, I don't need to do that froofy things because I'm just scared of the steps. But I wanted to die. You know, it's like, that's not working. And would it not work to have this experience? So it says, one more suggestion. And this is a suggestion. This is not a new suggestion. We have been seeing it throughout these later chapters. And it is a powerful reminder to what each and every one of us are called to do. But I am called to do, where it says, one more suggestion. Whether the family has spiritual convictions or not, they may do well to examine the principles by which the alcoholic member is trying to live. What are the principles? Well, the principles are the tangible actions of the 12 steps. So the family may do well to have a look at these 12 steps as a way of life. They can hardly fail to approve of these simple principles, and their actions. They're simple. They make sense. It makes sense. I got a resentment. Let's write some inventory. It makes sense. They can hardly fail to approve these simple principles, though the head of the house still fails somewhat in practicing them. Yeah, that's that non-dual consciousness where two things are true, where the alcoholic can have a radical, powerful spiritual awakening and still fall short. Yeah, two things can be true. And that's what's so cool. I know you guys cannot relate to having black and white all or nothing thinking. But I was riddled with it when I got here, and that ability to see subtlety, nuance, complexity, to hold space for more than one idea, that was not capable for me until I began to awaken spiritually. And it's so wild that that's when I began to experience deeper and seek more. And yeah, the world was not black and white. It turned to technicolor. So it says, they can hardly fail to approve of these simple principles, though the head of the house still fails somewhat in practicing them. This is important. Nothing will help a man who is off on a spiritual tangent so much as the wife who adopts a sane spiritual program, making a better practical use of it. What does that mean? It says nothing's going to help somebody more than working my own kick butt program. Yep. And that's not a new idea. Me taking this course of action and going after it, that's going to help anyone in my life more than anything else. And there's nothing worse than when you're like, and to be fair, yeah, I don't see too many people off on like crazy spiritual tangents, to be honest with you. But what if somebody is, it's like, there's nothing more grounding than to see somebody who's like, oh, no, they have that. They have that thing that I want. Like that. So that's the idea where it's like, hey, the alcoholic will find their way. Just let them sort it out. And it's funny because I've had a couple times, and it's always a bit of a little internal red flag when I've had a sponsee say this, but I've had a couple times where sponsees that are like, I don't want to end up like you, Paige. And I'm like, you're asking me for help. Like, now I don't say that. I just internally make a little note. But it's like, I don't want to end up like you. To which I assure them, don't worry, you won't. You won't. Doing 5 million big book studies and having 36,000 sponsees and other service commitments, you won't. You won't. I get a little hyperfixated on things, shocker, and listen, I am messed up. I need a lot of this. I needed a lot of booze and a lot of those non-conference approved dry goods. I need a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that's just how I am. But most people are going to find that equilibrium. They're going to find, like, we're going to talk about the word balance in this next section. But you guys know I'm not big on the word balance. You know why? I don't know anyone that's found balance. And I always talk about balance as like, I visualize it. And to be fair, I do have vertigo. And if you look at, so maybe I got a bit of a resentment towards balance, but I also have some spiritual vertigo because clearly I'm not balanced spiritually. I'm all in. But oh, that is so kind of you. Thank you. That's way nicer than, ew. Yeah. But when I think of balance, I think of like a server at a restaurant, and that person is holding those plates. And if imagine me as a server holding those plates, I'm at the center. And I ought not be at the center of my life. I prefer a God-centered path. And if I seek that power, if I seek that conscious contact in everything that I do, I promise the balance will find itself. Because balance is not a constant thing. There are times when our family is going to need a lot more time. And then there's going to be times where we need to go hard with sponsees. And then there's going to be times where maybe we need to do a little bit more on career. We're still working with others and we're still giving time to our family. But there's that. And if I keep seeking God, I will find that. And I'm somebody, like, listen, I am somebody, my sponsor has been very clear. He's like, you are the only person that I am giving this suggestion to, where it's like, do less, schedule less, you know, and he's adamant about that. I was like, ooh, but it's that most people are gonna have easily flow into hobbies, easily flow into family time, easily flow into that. But that spiritual connection allows me to flow into that. That's what we're talking about. So I don't got to worry about balance. It'll find itself. But the next section is where that balance will come up. We're not going to, I don't think we're going to get to it today based on, I got 5 minutes left. See, I do have an eye on the time. Even if I don't have an eye on when randomly the volume cuts out, that's wild. Trying to keep an eye on all the things. So now is when we sort of transition into the same problem that was experienced when the alcoholic was focusing on money, which is the lack of time and attention and care that the family is receiving. And so that's that problem again. And it is a problem. Like, I'm not saying, oh, who cares? No, it's a problem. We've got to address it. So let's dive in. Unless you are muting to tell me not to. Now, okay, all right. Or unmuting to tell me we can't hear me again. I don't know. We're doing the best we can. All right, so it says, there will be other profound changes in the household. So there's going to be changes. Liquor incapacitated father for so many years that mother became the head of the house. She met those responsibilities gallantly, so bravely. By force of circumstance, she was often obliged to treat father as a sick or wayward child. To be fair, I was acting pretty childlike. Now, I also want to contextualize this because this part of the book, and as we spoke about the head of the house, they're referring to the alcoholic who, in those early days, was more likely to be a man and dad. And we're at this meeting, it's mostly ladies, and I always feel bad when a guy comes and then I'm trying to say, it's not a ladies meeting, you can stay, and then they leave before I can get it out. So that's not always the case, but it can be easy to read this sort of paragraph through that lens of, oh, this is just old-fashioned. It's saying, oh, the wife had to wear the pants, and now the guy's got to put the pants on. And we're on Zoom. You don't got to wear pants if you keep the camera up. But what I want to point out is that's actually not what this is saying. We can hold up to our own experience. When I was drinking, I wasn't able to be a responsible member of the family. And often there was a codependent, maybe enabler, that was propping us up. And we couldn't make decisions for the family, or we couldn't make decisions for the household. It says even when he wanted to assert himself, he could not. For drinking placed him constantly in the wrong. Yeah, that'll happen. Mother, or the sober individual, made all the plans and gave the directions. When sober, father usually obeyed, because I usually know how bad I messed it up and I'm in the doghouse, and so I'm just going to go along with it, that sort of thing. Thus, mother, through no fault of her own, became accustomed to wearing the family trousers. So again, I know we're talking about wearing the pants, but let's let go of the old ideas of what that language meant, because what we're going to see is it's not saying, let's make the man the head of the household and in charge of everything. Let's see what it says. Father coming suddenly to life, and again I want to say suddenly, does not take long to get well, does not take long to have a spiritual experience. Father suddenly coming to life again often begins to assert himself. So we begin to have opinions and want to participate and, be a part of the family. And it says this means trouble unless the family watches for these tendencies in each other and comes to a friendly agreement about them. So I might hear head of the house, I might hear trousers, and I might think, well, they're just expecting the man to be in charge. No, it's saying the person who has been sober, who has not been the raging alcoholic, has had to carry the weight of the labor, emotional labor, intellectual labor of the family and the responsibilities. The alcoholic now gets sober and has opinions, and that can be a tough transition for any relationship. And then what it is saying is, the family should watch for these things in both themselves, continuing to work this program and to see what's coming up in ourselves and to come to a friendly agreement, to work together. That's what it's saying, a friendly agreement. So that's what we're talking about. That communication, which is so foreign to somebody like me. So as we continue on this part in the family afterward next week, we're going to see about the push and pull for attention and affection, which is so understandable, and how we navigate those problems. So with that, I will stop the recording and toss it over to Vivian.